Hi, in this video I want to discuss believing the right thing and believing the wrong thing, and how you can look at on both sides of the equation, I suppose, and comparing people like sheeple and people that think for themselves more, the less cliche types, and how they can generally become a detriment. Like the ego thing. You often see people that are lone wolves often become very egotistical because they only have themselves to, interact with. In many cases, they believe that the one and only at that point, once you have the illusion and you're the one and only, or at least you're one of very few, you obviously become very egotistical and you become self-righteous and you become something that you become the very idea that you've condemned and that you hate so much. In many cases, it can become a detriment. But obviously, there's other things as well. Obviously, we're all individuals, yeah, but obviously, there's people that are more and less unique than others. There's people that are more common and more part of the people that look more similar, um, more that look more similar, act more similar. There's people that obviously we're all individuals, yes, but obviously there's more distinctions between certain people than there are than other people. And I guess the distinction and comparison I want to make in this video is beliefs and ideas, philosophy, and people's ideas and how they act, understand the things they believe and they portray. And that's it's better to be a sheeple and then believe the right thing than to not, because than to be a person that thinks for themselves and thinks the wrong thing. Um, because ultimately it's going to become sheeple to know the right thing and think the right thing, because obviously it's about moving and migrating most people onto the side, other than say someone working alone on their own and finding a way to self-destruct the planet, and find a way to completely eradicate life on their own, getting that basic idea, at least the philosophy when it comes to the eradication of everything that our life's founded on. I guess when it comes to philosophy, that I'm making this comparison because it's a philosophy and idea that controls it's a very strong philosophy that I can compare and put people in the category of more sheeple thinking and less sheeple thinking, because it's an extreme idea, but it's a reasonable radical idea, but it's also the radical idea that lends to the conclusion, the right conclusion, and the ultimate conclusion that only really matters is the elimination of suffering, because that's what we're experiencing in everyday life. We can apply to certain situations how a person dresses, or how a person eats, or what they eat and what they look like, what they wear. It doesn't really matter in the end, how they do their hair, because the ultimate thing is everything you're experiencing, every kind of cliche you're experiencing is some form or another of your experience of life and the sensations that you're experiencing. So the ultimate conclusion is you're more of a sheeple when you're not believing in the say something like anti-natalism than you are, say, if you are you wear your hair a certain way that's very similar. You shave your head bald or something. Whatever it is, whatever other cliche, you're more of a cliche if you don't believe the important things, or if you deny those important things. You're more of a cliche if you're a religious kook. You're more of a cliche if you're one of those people more than um, in believing those things rather than say how you dress, as opposed to believing, you know, the comparison between believing in a religion and the procreation as opposed to not believing procreation, believing in the eradication of and all human life, all life, period, and not believing in a religion, being anti-theist, being an atheist, having those comparisons. So I guess that's the qualification for which I say it's better be a sheeple and believe the right thing. And that's what the ultimate comparison I'm making, because generally speaking, all things lend to that ultimate conclusion. Because people generally act a certain way when they have a certain idea and a conclusion. They generally dress a certain way sometimes, and not necessarily all the times. You generally see a certain trend when it comes to certain beliefs, because it lends to a certain idea. Once it's, like I mentioned, because it's based on all these foundations that mean everything. This idea is very controlling, and since it's very controlling, it can control all sorts of aspects that we find irrelevant, but are relevant in the fact that they come along with the fact that this certain thing is going to have an effect, and since it's the fundamental aspect and fundamental idea that expresses everything that really has any kind of philosophical meaning, it's going to generally come with all these things that generally come with it. But then again, it's not going to be entirely thoroughly true. It's those things are irrelevant in the end regardless. It's about the basic idea, and the basic idea has to do with this understanding of reality, the intelligence that you have when it comes to understanding facts and not accepting fiction. Accepting facts and not accepting fiction. Not letting all the bull crap get in the way. More than anything. That's the ultimate conclusion. Anyway, anyway, so yes, the ultimate conclusion is yeah, I guess the comparison I was making is we're going to ultimately be the sheeple on this side, whatever sheeple means. Sheeple, I guess I can apply and say sheeple is just, when you believe the wrong thing and it's in hordes. You believe a silly idea, and whatever it is, and then you make a collective. But also, sheeple can just mean that you're most people. You do a certain thing that most other people do. Sort of like believing in a religion, but I apply sheepleness to an idea that's a delusion or a wrong idea, and applying that to a sheeple. A person that just blindly follows a wrong idea is what I consider a sheeple. I guess if there was a definition, that would what it would be as well. But then again, if it's a right idea, you're logically coming to conclusion. I guess you're not just following, but you're basing it on logic. But I guess you're a sheeple if you just follow someone blindly, as opposed to logically coming to your own conclusion. So in many cases, it could be, obviously, if you're coming to the right side, for whatever reason it may be, it doesn't matter if you're a sheeple or not, regardless of that. I suppose you're a sheeple, or whatever it is, a Borgite, if you are a person that just lends their support based on the fact that their family lends support, because they're just following, because they're following the flock. Sheeple, they're in the sheep's flock, and they're following what someone else is doing. They're just following in line. Sort of like the sheep jumping over the fence in your dream is a classic example, as you count your Z's in your sleep. You're just following in line. You're jumping across the fence. You're doing your part. You're being a conformist, or whatever it may be. Whatever that means in the situation example I'm using. So that's irrelevant in many ways. Yeah, so it's better to do that than say be a contrarian. I'm going to believe in religion because all of a sudden all these people do it. In many cases, it has to come with ego. You want to feel like you're unique or whatever it may be. That's obviously one way to look at it. In many cases, like I mentioned before, you're the lone wolf. You have the image of being one and only, or being one of very few, and obviously that can get to you as well. And obviously that can become a detriment. But then again, you can believe you think something differently. You can believe you're so different because you believe a certain thing, but you don't really believe the thing that you think is making you so unique. In many cases, that's what happens, and you become a hypocrite. You become so deluded by your own egotistical psychology that you don't even realize exactly that you're falling into a trap that you've created for yourself, and that's where a lot of lack of self-awareness comes in, to this self-awareness and awareness of the circumstances and what exactly you believe. In many cases, that can get in the way, and you don't even realize exactly what you really believe. You just sort of believe based on your emotional capacity at the moment, how you interact. Whatever it may be, you base it on the circumstance. Today I kind of feel like believing in something, and another day I kind of feel like believing in something else. And that's when you know a person can't really be taken seriously. Obviously, people can emotionally react, and that can change a person's seeming opinion, but it's not really an opinion, it's just an emotional reaction. Because there would be no you if there was no changing. You can be a you, but obviously there's only a you, a me brain, or whatever it may be. There's an interaction, a changing. And obviously people can change so far before it seems like they're no longer the same person. Once you stick a rod in someone's brain and squish their brain around and they're still alive, they're no longer the same person. When they're doing this, they're no longer the same person. When they're just sort of, they're mentally handicapped now because you squish their brain to itty bitty pieces. It's smushed. It's pudding now. It's ice cream with cream. And once you do that, they're no longer the same person. But you can go so far as to say, when you know a person's opinion has changed to a certain degree, for better or worse. In many cases, that's what's always happening. It's always slightly changing, always slightly being diluted, not realizing it, or we're learning something new. And that can obviously get in the way of how we interact with and come to our own conclusions of what we expect and how we know who we are. But it's based on a bunch of dispositions and what we're likely to believe based on our circumstance and our predispositions. Say something like genetically, and that can come into circumstances as well. So in many cases, yeah, that's obviously a nice comparison to compare that idea with. So, it's obviously it's good to believe. If you're one of the few that believes the right thing, obviously that's contrarian to this example I gave to you, because you're one in few. You're the one in few that believes the right thing. But in many cases, it's not always the right thing that you're believing in. If you're the one in few, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong thing either. Just because it's in numbers, based on popularity doesn't mean it's right. Obviously, in many cases, you can understand that religion, very popular, not right. Obviously, you can be a little more specific and say, oh, obviously, some people are just, delusional, or some people are just in denial, and they don't want to accept reality. But it's still an excuse that they use. It's still a cover that they're using, and it's religion that they're using as the cover for why they believe whatever they believe. So it's still an example to use as a basic idea that people rely on when it comes to defying reality and the rules of existence, at least denying the fundamental aspects of existence. So obviously that's very important. So anyway, obviously I mentioned the distinction between sheeple and all that. So yeah, um, I think that's really all I need to say about this. It should be a shorter video anyway. Still over 10 minutes, but shorter. Anyway, if I have anything else to say on the subject, I can mention in another video. So thank you, and until next time. Bye.